Welcome to episode 14 of the Fitasylum podcast. Today we're joined by Caz, who works at FLM Training, and it's a little bit of a special podcast because I'm going to kind of treat it as like our 10-year anniversary podcast because this month we are 10 years old. We're filming this on the 9th of May, so we've had back-to-back weekends of bank holidays. What did you do, Caz?
Oh, very exciting times. Went to Blackpool, saw Billy Ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm definitely showing my age now. I bet you don't know who he is, do you?
I don't know who Billy Ocean is. I'm more surprised that you chose to go to Blackpool.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was something a bit different. Yeah, Billy Ocean, 70 odd, still on the stage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that this weekend just gone?
No, the weekend before.
Nice. What did you do this weekend?
Housey stuff.
House party?
Paint,
kind of.
No, like
Oh,
painting.
DIY.
Yeah, DIY stuff. Yeah.
That's very bank holiday, isn't
Yeah.
it? Get the DIY done.
Gotta get it done, yeah. But it's been good, it's been productive. We've had some good fun one weekend and then
Nice.
some housey
Productive
stuff.
one.
Yeah.
Are you good at DIY?
No.
No, I'm shocking. Like
I
truly
just tidy up
dreadful.
after the hubby when he paints and stuff. I just follow him around with a hoover.
So yeah, welcome to the podcast and tell us a little bit about what you do for FLM Training and Fitasylum.
Yeah, so I'm an internal verifier, which has kind of been a natural progression from being an assessor for a long time. 17 years?
17 years,
15
Caz.
and 17 years, yeah. So it was a natural kind of step to go to internal verifying. So when I was assessing, I worked very closely with our internal verifier then. So I kind of understood, what kind of procedures need to be followed, how I should be supporting the tutors, both Fitasylum and FLM, and just making sure the quality of the work is good and supporting them in standardising things when need be and training, creating resources to support. So yeah, I love it.
That's one of the things I'm really proud of when we work for Fitasylum. We're just always trying to get better, and we always quality check, and we're just trying to make sure that the student has the best experience and that their work and education is of such a high quality. So explain the process, how it gets from the student deciding to do the work to then how it comes to you, because a lot of students don't actually understand that, and I didn't understand it myself 2 years ago. So go on, tell us a little bit about that, please.
So obviously when the student's doing the qualification, whether it be, I suppose I'm more familiar with the apprenticeship side of stuff because I've been doing that for longer. So from the word go, really, from an apprentice and a tutor, that relationship is formed. So the tutor needs support, the tutor needs guidance sometimes when it comes to like 3 months into their apprenticeship. How's the learner getting on? Are they following the processes? And then they have a 6-month check. And then they have a check at the end. So once the IV has signed off the assessor's work, it's been quality checked, it's to a good standard, the learner can then be certified in that qualification.
So would I be correct in saying that the path is the student will decide to do the work, the tutor will mark the work, and then where does it go from the tutor marking the work?
Gives it to me.
Gives it to you.
I check it and I go, yep, that's great.
And
Passed.
You go, yeah, exactly. And then where does it go from you?
Well, it goes to the awarding body then. So
Nice.
the awarding body, Active IQ, sends the certificates then.
And because that's the funniest thing, students will complete a course on a Saturday and Monday morning be ringing us going, well, where's my certificate?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it doesn't exactly work like that. So it's really great
It works
insight.
a lot quicker than it used to work, but yeah,
Oh, really?
it's still a process, yeah.
So where does the EV come into it?
So the external verifier then, so they've got to kind of check my work basically.
Yeah.
So they need to check, they do audits, they come out every now and then and they check that I'm doing my work. I've got all my sample plans in place. I'm assessing the tutors at different levels, whether they're new to the role or whether they're experienced. If they're new to the role, I need to be checking a lot of their work, sampling pretty much 100% of what they do. And if they're experienced, to kind of leave them to it and 50% of the work. And
I remember when I first started, it was explained to me that 100% of my marking will be IV'd in the first year. And then if my quality is good, then it'll be 50%.
Yeah.
And obviously if you do get a low grade, then it'll go back to either 75 or 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. You feel like, obviously, your job gets tougher when you've got a 100% sample a tutor's work. But when you see them, over the next 3 months, and you think, I don't have to sample your work as much. You've done your role in supporting them.
Yeah, because you're
got
happy
that confidence and
of how good their work is.
and kind of leave them to
marking.
their own devices a little bit more, and that's all part of it.
Nice. And it is really helpful. I'll be honest, when I first started, I was like, why is someone marking my marking? And then I was like, why is someone marking the marking of my marking?
Yeah.
But actually is really helpful. And it's one of the, I would say, the pillars that makes the UK education system so good. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a real process, but it works. So, why change it if
it does work. And tell us a little bit about your professional journey. So you said you've been an assessor for like 16 years, I think it was. So how did you start? Where did you start? And how did you get to where you are today?
God, I think, well, from a really early age, sport, that's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. In school, in university, it was always the sports teams.
What sports?
Everything, like tennis, hockey, netball, gymnastics, because I did competitive gymnastics from an early age. Not like nationally, just regional. Yeah. But that was from the age of like 7 to 12.
What type of gymnastics?
Like your apparatus, your beam,
floor,
your bar,
pommel horse.
Yeah,
nice.
all of it, yeah.
Good bar.
And I kind of stopped doing that around the age of 12 because I wanted to go into coaching gymnastics.
Oh, wow. That's an early age to decide you want to go coaching.
And I think, it's interesting you say that because when I went to uni, I wanted to do sports psychology because I was really interested in, the mind, of the attitude, the confidence, why people, athletic performance, why people achieve, what drives them. So it's always been studying sport.
It's funny you say that because the biggest boom in sport over the last 5 years has been psychology in sport.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. But back then, how well received was it?
Not really.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I know when I remember reading articles about in the 90s how it was ridiculed a lot, sports psychology, and then only over the last 10 years has it kind of been a lot more accepted. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. I think because, things are changing so much in the industry, like, mental health.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think that is a big key. So sports psychology. So for me in university, I think in the back of my mind, I thought, I maybe want to do some coaching, I maybe want to be a PT. But you're quite young, aren't you? And you think you're old. You think everything.
I think you're mature.
So I was like, no, this is interesting, this sports psychology. I'll stick with this. So when I did come out of uni and I did decide I wanted to be a PT, I thought, well, I've got that kind of background in how to set goals for people and how to motivate them and understanding, positive mental attitude and all that type of thing.
Nice.
So then I went on to do a PT diploma, did my YMCA, fitness instruction and all that. Worked in all the gyms, got all the core skills, communication and all that type of stuff, and then did a bit of PT, and then kids come along then. So I didn't want to get up at 6 a.m. for clients or work at 6 p.m. It was like, I don't want to do this anymore, this is hard work. So that's when I decided to go into assessing. And I can't actually remember the name of the guy who I spoke to, but he was part of the company before FLM. And he introduced me to Dave, and started work doing assessing. It was great.
That's really interesting because I didn't know that about you, and it sounds a little bit similar to my path. So on the odd weekend, I was getting asked to go and work for another training provider and just kind of deliver the practical stuff. Yeah. And then they went, well, you're pretty good at PT, can you go and assess them? And then it was only over COVID that I decided that I wanted to do it more full time. Similar to yourself as well, probably a change in lifestyle, preparing for family life.
Absolutely.
So it was very interesting. So over the last 10 years, you said obviously you were introduced to Dave and Gary, who are the directors and owners. How has FLM Training and Fitasylum changed?
God, it's changed so much. The only one thing that hasn't changed is that I'm still there.
How long have you been here?
Well, 10 years.
10 years.
But I've known probably Dave 17 years and Gary similar, but Gary didn't work directly with me he had a different role. But so I've known them, quite a long time. So for me, it's changed a lot really because, when I was assessing, I was like lugging around these big portfolios in the back of my car and seriously just traveling all over the place. And, it was a very full-on job, and I loved it at the time. But I look back now and I think, how did I do that?
No, we have Teams now, which is so much better.
I fit everything into my day. My car was literally on 2 back wheels with all these portfolios in the back, and so that's completely changed.
Wow.
Everything's online, isn't it now?
Yeah.
And even my job. So when the previous IV was in place,
did you have to give all the portfolios to the IV back then?
Yeah, we had to go and pick them up, and then we had to drop them back at the office, and then we'd take them back to the learners.
So the world's definitely more streamlined.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like old school assessing me.
No, that's a really good insight. So 10 years ago, obviously the FLM training started. Tell us about, do you remember the first day? What was it like?
Well, I remember getting the call to say that, we're going to start FLM and we want you to be a part of it. And, I was made up because I thought I really enjoyed working with Gary and Dave and really want that to end. And I don't actually remember the first day. I don't, because we've been in a few different offices.
Yeah, so you've done like a few different hats.
Everything's kind of changed.
I'm correct in thinking you worked in different companies together.
Yeah.
So some of them memories will be amalgamations of working with them in other companies. So obviously they set up as FLM Training, and your role then was just as an assessor?
Yeah, so I was assessing in business admin, customer service and level 3 management, and then obviously it's developed over time because we did level 5 management, which I think you kind of start to understand that the industries that you're working in, the leisure centres, there's managers of different levels. You've got your key holders, your trainee managers, then you've got your official duty managers, and then you've got your actual centre managers. So there was definitely scope to go to a level 5 management.
Oh wow!
It was a tough qualification.
Yeah. Did they still do that?
We don't do that at the minute, no. But we had a few people achieve, and they got distinctions, and and they worked really hard. So that was a good insight into the range of management courses that we do. And I think at the minute now, what's coming up is I'm developing resources for a new management course, a level 3 like commercial management course. So that'll be exciting. So that's in the pipeline. And obviously the development of the mental health awareness course as well. I really enjoyed doing that.
You delivered it recently, didn't you?
Yeah, so I delivered that, and that's it's a great CPD course as well, and it's very current, isn't it? So
it's very interesting because we're talking about CPDs in the next podcast.
Yeah,
it's
interesting
that's you mentioned that. We'll have to remember to talk about that. And obviously 10 years ago you started as an assessor. How has your role changed from assessor to IV? Like, what was the journey been? How has the industry changed? How have you changed?
Well, I think like I said, it was a natural step, but I actually didn't think I would enjoy being an IV. It was like, should we move out of assessing? Should we go to this other role? And I was like, I really don't know if I want to do that role, It's very kind of paperworky.
Kaz, I've just had the same conversation with Harry last week. I didn't think I'd ever want to do the IVing because I'm not the biggest fan of marking. But I actually said to Harry last week, I was like, actually, I think I could do that.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy doing it, yeah. It is a very kind of mentor, kind of supportive role, and you don't feel like, because all of our tutors, I know we've got some new people on board, which is great, but they're all very experienced, so they really kind of appreciate the feedback that you're giving them, and you don't feel like you need to babysit them. You just feel like you can be professional, and you're teaching the professionals as well. And
I think that's a huge point, because I think it's got to be well received, the feedback, because you always are looking to develop. So if that person isn't looking to develop, it makes your job harder.
Yeah.
Where I know the feedback I've had has been so helpful. Like when you've said, oh, Dec, why don't you include this? Or please, can you include this? This would really help the student. You've got 10 times more experience than me in the industry. So why wouldn't I listen to someone like you? It's great. It's mentorship in a way. But it's also make sure the student gets the best experience, which I think is at the forefront of FLM. Has that always been the case?
Yeah, I think so. Because a point you made then, when you're teaching, you're naturally very good at teaching, and you can see you enjoy it, but you don't get people watching you day in, day out. No. So when you've got a different set of eyes on you, you can see, I've got to really be quite constructive sometimes, because sometimes you feel like you really have to find things. Yeah. But I know you'd appreciate me saying it rather than not.
100%. I say this too. When we assess students, some of them you get absolutely brilliant one-to-one level 3 sessions, and I have to make sure I tell the student, I acknowledge how well you've done. I've actually tried to find things for you to improve on, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you ways to improve. Yeah. And sometimes it's really hard. But I also think sometimes you can get into bad habits, and it's good to know what your good habits are and your bad habits. So like when yourself, Dave, Harry, whoever comes out, I think it's very important to constantly look to develop. But also sometimes your practice becomes outdated. Sometimes there's better practices available. And I think that's it's one of the best parts of being part of the FLM and Fitasylum team. I have raved about it on this podcast a few times, like the way that Dave and Gary and Harry manage is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a real kind of, you've got to work to your culture. Our FLM, our Fitasylum culture is really based on, people working to their strengths, and you've really got to let people do that and not micromanage people. And I think obviously managers can see that people don't need micromanaging, and
No.
you can just kind of blossom.
You've got a bit of creative freedom.
Yeah,
you've got a bit of teaching freedom. Everyone's got very different personalities, but we have such a strong team. But how has the industry changed? So we've talked about how FLM training have changed, but how has the industry changed?
Oh my God, it's changed a lot, hasn't it? Personal training.
Yes.
So I was 22 when I was personal training, and I remember having to get a phone because I didn't have a mobile phone.
What?
So I was talking to my kids about this the other week, and they were
So
like,
no
"What?"
social media.
No, God, no. And they were like, "You didn't get a phone until you were 22?" And I was like, "No, my phone was attached to the wall, and I had to circle it round to ring someone. I had to go into a phone box to put money into a phone." And
You're giving your age away, I guess.
Maybe I'm on, yeah. But that's how much it's changed. Everything's on the phone now. The smartwatches, the apps. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was everything is still word of mouth. I think PT is a big business for word of mouth.
Referral.
Yeah, I think it's quite personalised. You might be going to clients' homes.
Personal training.
Yeah, exactly. And parks, and you don't want to be kind of meeting randoms, do you? So I think your word of mouth is really important. So in that respect, I don't think it's changed so much. But yeah, it's developed so much.
When I did the qualification 13 years ago, it was terrible. And I think now the qualifications are much, much better. I do think I see so much scope for improvement, but I think it is a lot better, and I think it's only going to get better by people like yourself making the tutors and the assessors better quality of marking, better quality of resources, just everything. If everything can kind of keep leveling up, which is a term I don't like, but if everything can kind of keep getting better, the industry's only going to thrive, isn't it? I think the PTs now are much better than when I started 13 years ago.
Absolutely. And I think where PTs used to get it wrong is it's like you can never get complacent. No. Especially not now with the amount of new wearable devices and things that you've got going on. You've got to kind of embrace the change.
The standard has really improved.
You've always got to research, and you've got to, if you're going to be a PT, you've got to know about your nutrition, and I think that's a bigger thing now than it used to be.
Yes.
See, I was always interested in it anyway.
Science has developed.
Yeah, you can't out-train a bad diet.
Nope, you can't.
You can be training all hours in the gym, but if you're not fueling yourself correctly, I think your clients need to be educated on that.
100%. And as part of being a PT, you have to be careful on what advice you can and can't give. So you can't give specific meal plans or meals, but you can give advice. So it's about making sure we manage that. And I think in the future, my next question was actually, where do you think the industry is going? And I think hopefully in the future there'll be a qualification where we can give more specific nutrition advice, but it would mean the course is longer, so it might be like an add-on that you can do directly. But where do you think the industry is going in the next 10 years? So 10 years from now you'll still be IVing potentially.
I'm never going to leave FLM away. I think it's quite exciting, but it's also a bit scary. There's
it's
artificial intelligence, there's a lot of futuristic things happening, and I think things are developing fast as it is. I have an iPhone for 2 years, like you have your contract runs out, and I just about get to know how to do everything on my phone. And I think, I know what I'm doing now, and then it changes. And then it gets even better, and I'm like, I've got to start from scratch. So, like anything, social media, wearable devices, apparently you can get this, DNA, analysis on, an app.
Have you never done that before, Caz?
No, but I've been reading about it, and I'm thinking that is so interesting.
Yeah. So let's get checked. You can they send it to your house, you prick your finger, and it all comes up with your hormones and everything. Yeah. So I do that most months. It was a service I actually offered to my clients. So when I was PTing still, about 3 years ago, we did like a deal with them where they would come into our gym, prick all the clients' fingers, take the blood, and on their app it would update them with their results because they're QR codes and stuff, which is amazing, isn't it?
It is.
Because you can track hormones, triglycerides, blood sugar levels, everything. I mean, I don't know if you've seen now, a lot of diabetic people, they have the tabs on their arms, so it tracks it straight to the phone. So if they're ever running low, they get an announcement on their watch or their phone to kind of take their insulin. Yeah. So it is amazing.
It is.
And I do think the industry is going to change a lot.
Isn't it really?
It is. Hopefully the qualification needs to catch up though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think as a PT, there needs to be awareness of social media training, and like I said, nutrition, but social media, and the virtual things going on, the virtual classes and stuff. I think you've got to attend these things before you try these things, and there's just so much. It's changed an unbelievable amount.
So 10 years from now, it'll be a robot teaching us. Is that what you think?
And I think people have got to. Our communication is ultimately the best thing you can get. A face-to-face person. And I just think that surely can never be replaced. Surely.
No, I don't think it can be. I do agree with you on that one. I find it really strange that like when we work with students, a lot of them find it tough to deliver to people. And I think that's the main purpose of your job. So that's probably the skill we try to develop the most when they're on the course, especially if we're doing a blended course where they're in person. I find that communication skill is the hardest one. A lot of them are like, oh no, I have to speak to people. I'm like, yes, you have to speak to real people.
I think, you know, it does come naturally to some other people.
Yes,
and
it definitely does.
I think even just in jobs and stuff, you know, I think emotional intelligence is so much more important than actual intellect.
Yeah.
I think, you know, people have either got that and then you can't train a person to have a personality, but I think when it comes to PTs, that communication and just learning them basic skills is foundation really to being a PT.
You mentioned it there, like kind of the emotional awareness. Empathy is massive. If the client comes in and they're knackered, you know, you don't want to be just smashing them in the gym, because ultimately training, the stimulus you get from it is just stress. So if the client's already coming in stressed, there's just going to be more stress when they leave if you're stressing the body again. Yeah, so it is crazy. But I think the industry will change a lot. I think mental health will become a big part of it. Social media will become a big part of it, but also sales. That's why we've incorporated our mentorship program. So you get like a free month. The link will always be in the description, won't it, Cal? Yeah, he's just nodding his head. But yeah, just moving on to some of your tips, Caz. So what are you excited for 2023, by the way?
What do you mean apart from the Eurovision on Saturday? No, I'm joking.
Wow.
See how the UK does that? No. Well, in jobs, you know, in the job that I'm in now, it is exciting because it's always changing.
Yeah.
You know, there's always things to look forward to. I'm really looking forward to developing this management course and delivering it, and seeing how much, you know, the PT does develop at Fitasylum. Fitasylum is
booming.
It's amazing. You know, there's some really exciting stuff going on there, and it's really good to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm excited to
It's always good with new energy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a great
new
team.
Staff on board and stuff as well. The team is growing, isn't it?
Always growing. What's one tip you would give someone listening to this podcast right now, if they're currently in education, thinking about your educational life, everything you know about education, because you've got a wealth of knowledge? What would you say the one tip you would give to someone who's in education?
Well, you know, I think working towards your strengths is massive. I think when I was in school, if I didn't have them sports teams, you know, I don't know what would have been my driving force, my passion, my motivation to get up and go to school and enjoy school. And I think it was exactly the same with university. I think, you know, I thought it does come natural for me to do sports, and it's so much more enjoyable than any other lessons. I did all right in the other lessons, but it was such a far cry from doing sport. So I think if you're going to study, do something you really, really enjoy, you know, and make a difference, because if it comes natural, then that's half the battle, isn't it?
You sound really passionate about that, Caz, so it makes me really believe you. But no, I think that's a really, really valid point. And if someone, say, was in, well, they will be a professional, what tip would you give a fellow professional? They don't have to be in the same industry, just be anything.
Well, I suppose, I think PT, you know, becomes, because they did it for so, like, fitness instruction and PT, and I think, you know, you mentioned, you know, a little story before about you've got to give yourself time in the industry to develop into a PT. You know, you can't just do a qualification and go, great, I'm a PT. Yeah. This is it. You know, it takes time. You've got to really communicate with people, and that is the key. Get to know people. And I think as well, like I mentioned before, you know, don't get complacent with your clients. You know, your clients are really loyal. You'll get clients who will
stay with you forever.
Yeah, because they can afford it and they like the company and stuff, but it still doesn't mean you can get complacent.
So give a good quality service all the time.
Yeah, and you've always got a PT, like people are watching you. You know, you've always got to be professional.
I like that. Maybe get an IV for your PT.
Yeah.
So get another PT to come and watch you.
It's a great job. You know, I loved being a PT.
I love being a PT.
I got a lot from it, and yeah, you made some good friends, you know, out
of
it as well, yeah, and kept in touch with them, and I kind of miss it to a certain degree, but I don't miss the hours.
No. So you mentioned on the tip about someone in education, you said about sticking to your strengths. I think that's amazing, because a lot of people always say, oh, I need to work on my weaknesses, and you're saying, right, let's work on the strengths, because that's what makes you who you are.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think, you know, a big thing for me, obviously I've got 2 kids, and my eldest is 14, and he is in the football team in school, and he loves it. And I think, you know, school's just school to him. You know, he goes and he's happy enough. But that's what makes him passionate about going to school every day, is being part of a team, and it's developing so many more skills than just being a football player. You know, so when I say to him, you work within your strengths. Whatever you do after school, do what you enjoy. You know, do an apprenticeship. You don't have to do A-levels. Just do something that you're going to enjoy.
I love that the priority is something you enjoy. Because a lot of people come onto our courses because they want to do a career they enjoy.
Yeah.
And the tip for if they're a professional, what was that again?
Do you mean the PT, not being complacent?
Yeah, so not being complacent, so always provide a quality service.
Yeah, always PT like someone's watching you.
Nice, I like that, PT like someone's watching you.
Yeah.
We'll add that to the tips. But Caz, thank you very much for joining us. How did you find the podcast?
Great, I really enjoyed it. Could talk all day.
Thanks for the energy, Caz. And guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, maybe tag us on your stories, maybe drop us a comment, and thank you for all your support.
Thank you.